The morning sun pushed through the thin curtains as Sarah opened her eyes. Today was different. She could feel it in the air. The small room that had been her home for the past 5 years felt smaller than usual. The walls seemed to lean in, as if they too were tired of the same daily routine. Sarah worked at the town library. Every day she walked the same path, greeted the same people, and shelved the same books. Her life moved in perfect circles, never breaking pattern. Until today. "Miss, you forgot this," a small voice called as Sarah was locking the library door. A young boy held up a worn leather book. Sarah did not recognize it from the library collection. "Where did you find this?" she asked, taking the strange book. The boy pointed to the history section. "It fell when I was looking for a dinosaur book. It has no title." Sarah thanked him and tucked the book into her bag. Later that night, after eating a simple dinner alone, she remembered the book. The cover was plain brown leather with no words or pictures. When she opened it, the pages were blank. "How strange," she said to her empty apartment. She was about to close the book when words began to appear on the first page. The letters formed slowly, as if an invisible hand was writing them. "The one who reads these words has been chosen." Sarah almost dropped the book. She blinked hard, thinking her tired eyes were playing tricks. But the words remained. As she watched, more writing appeared. "Follow the map that will appear tomorrow at first light. A journey awaits." Sarah laughed nervously. This had to be some new technology. A prank, perhaps. She closed the book and put it on her bedside table. That night she dreamed of paths through forests she had never seen and mountains she had never climbed. The next morning, Sarah woke earlier than usual. The book lay where she had left it. With careful fingers, she opened it again. The words from last night were gone. Instead, there was a detailed map showing her town, with a red line leading from her apartment to the old woods outside town. "This is crazy," she told herself. Yet something pulled at her, the same feeling that had woken her that morning. The feeling that today was different. Sarah called the library and, for the first time in 5 years, said she would not be coming to work. She packed a small bag with water, some food, and a jacket. The book went into the bag last. The path on the map led her through town, past the grocery store and the school, to the edge where houses gave way to wild grass and tall trees. The woods had always been there, but Sarah had never entered them. No one did. There were stories of people getting lost, of strange lights at night. At the edge of the woods, Sarah stopped. The red line on the map continued between the trees, becoming a small path she had never noticed before. She looked back at the town, at her simple, predictable life. Then Sarah took a deep breath and stepped onto the path. The trees seemed to bend slightly, making way for her. The air smelled different here, fresher, with hints of flowers she could not name. Birds called overhead in patterns that almost sounded like words. She walked for an hour, following the map. The trees grew thicker, older. Then the path opened into a small clearing. In the center stood a round stone table. On it was a single key made of what looked like gold. The map in the book now showed the clearing, with a small star marking the stone table. Next to it, new words appeared. "Take the key. The door will find you." Sarah reached for the golden key. As her fingers touched it, the air around her hand seemed to shimmer. The journey had begun. Sarah held the golden key tightly in her hand. It felt warm, almost alive. The trees around the clearing seemed to watch her with silent interest. As she placed the key in her pocket, the book in her bag grew warm. She took it out and opened it. The map had changed again. Now it showed a path leading deeper into the woods, to a place marked with a small house symbol. New words appeared below the map. "Follow where the birds sing loudest. Keep the key safe." Sarah closed the book and listened. At first, she heard only the normal sounds of the forest. Then she noticed that the bird songs seemed stronger from the north side of the clearing. She walked that way and found a narrow path between two old oak trees. The path twisted through the woods like a snake. Sometimes it almost disappeared under fallen leaves, but Sarah always found it again. The trees grew taller here, their branches making a roof that blocked much of the sunlight. After walking for what felt like hours, Sarah saw something ahead that made her stop. Through the trees was a stone wall, at least 10 feet tall. It looked very old, with moss growing on it. The path led to a wooden gate in the wall. Sarah approached the gate carefully. There was no handle, just a small keyhole. She took out the golden key and studied it, then looked at the keyhole. They seemed to match. This has to be what the book meant, she said to herself. With a deep breath, she put the key in the hole and turned it. At first, nothing happened. Then she heard a series of clicks from inside the gate, and it slowly swung open. Beyond the gate was the most surprising sight Sarah had ever seen. A small village of stone houses with thatched roofs sat in a large clearing. People walked between the houses, carrying baskets or leading goats. Children played near a central well. Everyone was dressed in simple clothes that looked like they were from long ago. As Sarah stepped through the gate, the villagers stopped what they were doing and turned to look at her. A tall woman with gray hair pulled back in a braid approached. "You have found us," the woman said. Her voice was deep and kind. "We have been waiting." "Waiting for me?" Sarah asked, confused. "I don't understand. Who are you people? How is this village here?" "No one in town knows about this place." The woman smiled. "My name is Ilara. I am the keeper of this village. We have lived here for many generations, hidden from the outside world. Only those chosen by the book can find us." Ilara led Sarah to the largest building in the village. Inside was a round room with a fire pit in the center. Old books and strange objects lined the walls on wooden shelves. Long ago, Ilara explained, our ancestors chose to leave the busy world. They found magic in these woods and built this village. The book that called to you is one of our treasures. It only shows itself to someone who is needed. "But why me?" Sarah asked. "I'm just a librarian. There's nothing special about me." Ilara pointed to a painting on the wall. It showed a woman who looked very much like Sarah, standing next to a large tree. The woman in the painting held a golden key. "This was painted 300 years ago," Ilara said. "The woman was called the Guardian of Stories. When she died, the book left our village to find the next guardian. It has been gone for many years. Now it has chosen you." Sarah stared at the painting. "This doesn't make sense. That can't be me." "The book does not make mistakes," Ilara said. "Come, there is someone you must meet." Ilara led Sarah through a door at the back of the room. They entered a garden where an ancient tree grew. Sitting under the tree was an old man with a white beard. His eyes were closed, but he smiled as they approached. "He has been waiting for you longer than anyone," Ilara said softly. The old man under the tree opened his eyes as Sarah approached. His eyes were a clear blue, like a summer sky, and seemed much younger than his wrinkled face. "Welcome, guardian," he said. His voice was soft but strong. "My name is Thorn. I have been the keeper of time in this village for over 100 years. Sarah sat on a stone bench across from him. "I don't understand any of this. Yesterday I was just a librarian. Now you're calling me a guardian." Thorn nodded slowly. "The outside world has forgotten much of the old magic. But here, in this hidden place, we remember. The Guardian of Stories protects not just books, but the power of stories themselves." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small hourglass. The sand inside glowed with a faint blue light. "Stories shape the world," Thorn continued. "They can change how people think and act. Long ago, there were those who wanted to control all stories, to use their power for selfish reasons. Our ancestors created this place to protect the true magic of storytelling." Sarah looked at the glowing hourglass. "What does this have to do with me?" "The book chose you because you understand the value of stories. You have spent your life surrounded by them, caring for them. But now a great danger has returned. The silence seeks to destroy stories once again. The silence, Sarah asked. Ilara, who had been standing quietly nearby, spoke up. They are those who fear the power of words and imagination. They believe that controlling stories means controlling people. Their leader has returned after centuries of sleep. Thorn held out the hourglass to Sarah. This is the timer of tales. It shows how much time remains before the silence reaches full strength. As you can see, the sand is running low. Sarah reluctantly took the hourglass. As her fingers touched it, the sand inside glowed brighter. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked. "The first guardian created 5-story stones," Thorn explained. "They contain the oldest and most powerful stories ever told. The silence wants to find and destroy them. You must find them first and bring them here, where they will be safe." Sarah shook her head. "This is crazy. I can't do this. I'm not special or brave. I don't know anything about magic." Ilara placed a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. "The book would not have chosen you if you were not ready. You have strengths you do not yet recognize." Thorn pointed to the book in Sarah's bag. "The book will guide you to each stone. But be careful. The silence has servants everywhere, even in your town. They will try to stop you." Sarah thought about her quiet life at the library. It had been simple but empty. Here was something important, something that mattered. Could she really walk away from that? "How will I know these story stones when I see them?" she asked. Thorn smiled, seeing that she was considering their request. "Each stone is marked with a symbol and holds the essence of a type of story. The first stone bears the mark of adventure and is hidden in a place where water meets sky." Sarah looked at the hourglass again. The glowing sand continued to fall, marking time she didn't know she had. "You should rest tonight," Ilara said. "Tomorrow is soon enough to begin your search." That night, Sarah stayed in a small stone house in the village. The bed was comfortable, but she found it hard to sleep. Her mind was filled with thoughts of story stones, the mysterious silence, and the strange destiny that had found her. Through the window, she could see the stars. They seemed brighter here, away from the lights of town. One star in particular caught her eye. It pulsed with a gentle rhythm, almost as if it were watching over her. As sleep finally began to take her, Sarah wondered what her life would be like now. Would she ever return to her apartment and her job at the library, or had her story already changed forever? The book lay open on a table nearby. As Sarah drifted to sleep, new words appeared on its pages. The journey of 1,000 stories begins with a single word: believe. Sarah woke to the smell of fresh bread. For a moment, she thought she was in her apartment, but then she saw the stone walls and remembered everything. A small basket sat on the table, filled with bread, cheese, and berries. After eating, she picked up the book. The map had changed again, now showing a path leading from the village to a large lake. Next to the lake was a small drawing of a lighthouse. "Where water meets sky," Sarah said, remembering Thorn's words. She packed a bag with food and water provided by the villagers. The hourglass went in too, wrapped in a soft cloth. As she prepared to leave, Ilara came to her door. "Take this," Ilara said, holding out a small knife in a leather sheath. "The path may not always be safe." Sarah had never carried a weapon before, but she took it and attached it to her belt. "Thank you. I'll try to return soon." "The book will bring you back when the time is right," Ilara said. "Trust it, and trust yourself." Sarah left the village through a small gate in the back wall. The path led through dense woods for several miles before opening up to show a vast lake. The water stretched to the horizon, meeting the sky in a blue line. On a small island in the middle of the lake stood a tall lighthouse. "That must be it," Sarah said to herself. A wooden dock stretched into the water, with a small rowboat tied to it. As Sarah approached, she noticed a man sitting in the boat. He was old and weathered, with skin tanned dark by the sun. "Are you going to the lighthouse?" Sarah asked. The old man nodded. "I am the keeper there. And you must be the one Thorn told me about." The new guardian. Word travels fast, Sarah said, surprised. Not word. Light signals. The man pointed to the top of the lighthouse, where a mirror flashed in the sun. Thorn sent the message last night. I am Marin. I will take you across. Sarah carefully stepped into the boat. Marin rowed with strong, practiced strokes. The lake was calm, but deep. Sarah could not see the bottom. The story stone has been in my keeping for 50 years, Marin said as they approached the island. I knew one day someone would come for it. The silence has been growing stronger. Their shadows have been seen on the lake at night. The lighthouse was taller than it had appeared from shore. Its white walls were made of smooth stone, and a spiral staircase wound up the inside. Marin led Sarah to the top, where a great lamp sat in the center of a round room. The walls were lined with bookshelves, all filled with books about adventures. The first story stone contains all the great adventures ever told, Marin explained. Journeys to far lands, quests for treasure, battles against great odds. All the stories that inspire people to be brave and seek new horizons. He went to a bookshelf and pulled out a thick volume, bound in blue leather. Opening it revealed a hollow center, where a stone the size of Sarah's palm rested. It was a deep blue color with the symbol of a ship carved into its surface. Be careful with it, Marin warned. When you hold it, you will feel the pull of every adventure it contains. Some have been lost in its visions. Sarah reached for the stone. As her fingers touched it, a rush of images filled her mind. She saw ships sailing stormy seas, explorers climbing mountains, heroes facing dragons. The visions were so real she could feel the spray of ocean waves and the heat of dragon fire. Focus, Marin's voice seemed to come from far away. Remember who you are. Sarah closed her eyes and thought of the library, of the quiet moments shelving books. The rush of images slowed, then settled. When she opened her eyes, she was holding the blue stone firmly. You did well, Marin said. Many cannot pull themselves back from the first touch. As Sarah placed the stone in her bag, a shadow passed over the lighthouse window. Looking out, she saw dark clouds gathering over the lake, moving unnaturally fast. The silence knows, Marin said urgently. You must go. Now. They hurried down the stairs. The lake, calm before, now had waves crashing against the island. The air felt heavy and cold. Take the boat, Marin said. I will stay and try to slow them down. What about you? Sarah asked. My task was to keep the stone until the guardian came. I have done that. Now go. Sarah reluctantly got into the boat and began to row toward the shore. Behind her, the lighthouse lamp began to shine with an intense light that pushed back the dark clouds. But the shadows were still coming, reaching across the water toward her boat. Sarah rowed with all her strength as the shadows moved across the water. The boat seemed too slow, the shore too far away. Looking back, she saw dark shapes gathering around the lighthouse. The bright beam from the top still fought against them, but it was growing weaker. The shadows on the water began to take form. They looked like long, thin boats with hooded figures standing in them. They made no sound as they glided over the waves. Sarah reached into her bag and touched the story stone. Instantly, she felt a surge of courage. The stone was warm, pulsing with energy. The stories of brave adventurers facing terrible dangers filled her mind. I can do this, she whispered to herself. The shore was still several hundred yards away when the first shadow boat drew near. A cold voice called out from beneath the hood. Give us the stone, guardian. You cannot escape us. Sarah did not answer. Instead, she pulled out the book. It had opened to a new page with words appearing across it. Stories bring light. Speak them aloud. Understanding came to Sarah. She held the blue stone in one hand and began to speak. Once there was a brave sailor who faced the greatest storm ever known. As she spoke, light began to shine from the stone. A shadow boat slowed. The wind and waves rose higher than mountains, but the sailor was not afraid. The light grew stronger. The shadow figures drew back, their dark boats faltering on the water. With skill and courage, the sailor guided the ship through the heart of the storm, saving all aboard. A beam of blue light shot from the stone, striking the nearest shadow boat. It dissolved into mist with a sound like a distant scream. The other shadows retreated, moving back toward the lighthouse. Sarah reached the shore, pulled the boat up onto the land, and collapsed on the grass, breathing hard. The blue stone still glowed in her hand, but softer now. The shadows remained at a distance, circling the lighthouse. After resting, Sarah checked the book again. The map had changed, showing a path leading away from the lake and into mountains to the east. Sarah looked back at the lighthouse one last time. The lamp still shone, though not as brightly as before. She hoped Marin was safe. The path through the mountains was steep and rocky. Sarah walked all day, stopping only for short breaks. As the sun began to set, she found a small cave where she could spend the night. After eating some of the food from her pack, she took out the hourglass. More sand had fallen to the bottom chamber. Sarah also examined the blue story stone more carefully. In the dim light of the cave, she could see that the ship symbol was not carved into the stone, as she first thought. It seemed to float just below the surface, moving slightly as if sailing on invisible waves. She placed the stone beside her as she prepared to sleep. Its gentle blue glow was comforting in the darkness. Just as she was drifting off, she heard a noise from deeper in the cave. Sarah grabbed the knife Ilara had given her and stood up. "Who's there?" A small figure stepped into the blue light. It was a young boy, no more than 10 years old. His clothes were dirty and torn, and he looked scared. "Please don't hurt me," he said. "I was just looking for a place to sleep." Sarah lowered the knife. "What's your name? What are you doing alone in these mountains?" "My name is Leo," the boy said. "I ran away from home. There were strange people in black coats asking questions about old stories and magic stones. They scared my parents, but I heard them talking about a guardian. Then I saw you in town the day you found the book." Sarah was surprised. "You're the boy who gave me the book." Leo nodded. "I didn't find it in the library. It found me. It showed me pictures in my head about giving it to you. Then it showed me to follow you. I've been behind you since you entered the woods." Sarah considered what to do. She couldn't send the boy home if the silence was there, but taking him along might be dangerous too. "You can stay with me tonight," she decided. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do." Leo smiled for the first time. "I can help you. I know lots of stories. My grandmother used to tell them to me every night." As if responding to his words, the blue stone pulsed brighter for a moment. Sarah noticed and wondered if the stone was somehow connected to the boy. Was this another part of the path the book was leading her on? "Get some rest," she told Leo. "We have a long journey ahead." That night, Sarah dreamed of a high mountain pass where snow fell even in summer. In the dream, she saw a tower made of silver, shining in the sun. A voice whispered, "The second stone waits where stories of love endure the coldest touch." Morning came with a thin layer of frost covering the ground outside the cave. Sarah and Leo ate some bread and berries before checking the book. The map now clearly showed a mountain path leading to a high peak where a tower stood. "That matches my dream," Sarah said. "We need to find a silver tower in the mountains." Leo looked excited. "My grandmother told me stories about the silver tower. She said it was built by a prince who waited there for his true love to return from a long journey." They packed up their things and continued along the path. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the air grew colder. By midday, patches of snow appeared on the ground. "How much farther?" Leo asked, hugging himself for warmth. Sarah checked the book again. "Not too far." The map shows were close. They rounded a bend in the path and stopped in amazement. Before them stood a tall tower made of what looked like silver. It caught the sunlight and sent beams of light in all directions. A frozen lake surrounded the tower, with a narrow path of ice leading to its door. "It's beautiful," Leo whispered. As they approached the lake, Sarah felt uneasy. The ice looked solid, but the path to the tower seemed too perfect, as if it had been waiting for them. She remembered Thorn's warning that the silence had servants everywhere. "Wait here," she told Leo. "I'm going to check if it's safe." Sarah took a careful step onto the ice. It held her weight. Another step. Still fine. She was about halfway to the tower when she heard a crack. The ice beneath her feet began to splinter. "Sarah!" Leo called from the shore. Sarah tried to run, but the cracks spread faster. Just as the ice gave way, she jumped toward the tower path. Her hands caught the edge of solid ice, but the rest of her body plunged into freezing water. The cold was like 1,000 knives. Sarah struggled to pull herself up, but her hands were already growing numb. Then she felt someone grab her wrists. Leo had run out onto the path and was trying to pull her up. "I can't hold you," he grunted, straining with all his small might. Sarah's fingers were slipping when she remembered the blue stone. With her last strength, she reached into her pocket with one hand and touched it. "Tell a story," she gasped to Leo. The boy seemed confused, but then understood. "Once there was a sailor lost at sea in a terrible storm," he began. The stone in Sarah's pocket began to glow. She felt warmth spreading through her body despite the freezing water. The waves were as tall as mountains, but the sailor fought on. Leo continued, pulling harder on Sarah's arms. With renewed strength, Sarah pushed up as Leo pulled. Together, they got her out of the water and onto the solid path. She lay there gasping, her clothes freezing in the cold air. "We need to get you warm," Leo said worriedly. The tower door was only a short distance away now. Supporting each other, they made their way to it. The large wooden door swung open at their touch, as if welcoming them. Inside, they found a circular room with a fire burning in a hearth. The warmth washed over them immediately. The walls were lined with tapestry showing scenes of lovers meeting, parting, and reuniting. "How is there a fire burning with no one here?" Leo asked. Sarah looked around. "Magic, I think. The same magic that protects the story stones." After Sarah had changed into dry clothes, she found in a chest near the fire. They explored the tower. Spiral stairs led up to several more floors, each filled with books, paintings, and small statues. All of them told stories of love. On the highest floor, they found a room with a glass ceiling that showed the sky above. In the center stood a pedestal with a small box. Inside was a rose-colored stone with the symbol of two hands clasped together. "The second-story stone," Sarah said. "This one holds all stories of love." As Sarah reached for it, the tower suddenly trembled. Outside, the sky had grown dark. Sarah ran to the window and saw shadows moving across the frozen lake, heading toward the tower. "The silence found us," she said. "We need to get out of here." Leo looked scared. "Is there another way out?" Sarah checked the book. A new page showed a picture of the tower with a hidden door on the ground floor, behind one of the tapestries. It led to a tunnel through the mountain. "Yes, but we have to hurry." Sarah carefully picked up the rose stone. Unlike the blue stone of adventure, this one filled her with feelings of warmth, connection, and longing. Images of lovers across time and space filled her mind. "All the great love stories," she whispered. "So much feeling." They hurried down the stairs as the tower shook again. Outside, the shadows had reached the edge of the frozen lake. Sarah spotted the tapestry shown in the book and pulled it aside. Behind it was a small wooden door. "This is it," she said, pulling it open. The tunnel through the mountain was long and winding. Sarah and Leo walked for hours, guided only by the glow of the two-story stones. Finally, they saw light ahead and emerged into a forest unlike any Sarah had ever seen. The trees here had trunks of all colors: purple, orange, bright blue. Their leaves were shaped like stars and moons. Small creatures that looked like rabbits with butterfly wings hopped from branch to branch. "Where are we?" Leo asked in wonder. Sarah checked the book. The map showed they were in a place called the Forest of Laughter. According to the text appearing beside the map, This was where the third-story stone was hidden. "This forest holds the stone of joy," Sarah read aloud. "All the stories that bring happiness and laughter are contained within it." They walked through the strange forest, hearing odd musical sounds coming from the trees themselves. Leo laughed when a small creature with a round body and tiny legs waddled up to him and bowed. "Everything is so funny here," he said. Sarah smiled. After the fear and cold of the Silver Tower, the warmth and joy of this place was welcome, but she remained alert. The silence had found them twice now, and might find them again. The book showed that they needed to reach the center of the forest, where a great tree stood. This tree, taller and wider than all others, was said to be the first tree ever to laugh. As they walked, Sarah noticed something strange. The forest seemed to respond to their emotions. When Leo laughed at the funny creatures, the trees around them grew brighter, and the music became more cheerful. When Sarah felt worried about the silence, the colors dimmed slightly. "I think this place is alive," she told Leo. "It feels what we feel." "Then we should be happy," Leo said. "Watch this." He began to skip and sing a silly song his grandmother had taught him. The forest immediately brightened. Flowers bloomed along the path, and more of the strange creatures appeared, dancing along with Leo. Sarah couldn't help but laugh at the sight. As she did, the path ahead cleared, as if the forest was helping them find their way. Soon they reached a clearing where the great tree stood. It was enormous, with a trunk so wide that 20 people holding hands could not reach around it. Its bark was a deep purple color that shifted to blue in places. But most remarkable was that the trunk had a face, 2 knot holes that looked like eyes, and a long crack that resembled a smiling mouth. As Sarah and Leo approached, the face moved. The tree was actually smiling. "Welcome, young guardian," the tree said in a deep, rumbling voice. "And welcome, little storyteller. I have been expecting you." Sarah stepped forward. "You can talk. All things can talk, if you know how to listen," the tree replied. "I am Galen, keeper of the Stone of Joy." Leo walked right up to the tree and touched its bark. "You're amazing." The tree's laugh shook the entire clearing, causing a shower of star-shaped leaves to fall around them. "You seek the third stone," Galen said, "but finding it is not as simple as taking it from a box or a book. The Stone of Joy must be earned through true laughter." "How do we do that?" Sarah asked. "Tell me a story that makes me laugh," Galen said. "If your story brings true joy, the stone will reveal itself." Sarah thought hard. She knew many stories from her years at the library, but which one would make a magical tree laugh? She looked at Leo for help. "Leo, do you know any funny stories?" The boy nodded eagerly. "My grandmother told me lots of them." "Can I try?" Sarah gestured for him to go ahead. Leo stepped forward and began to tell a story about a wizard who accidentally turned himself into a frog and then had to hop around trying to find someone to kiss him to break the spell. The problem was that he kept getting mistaken for an ordinary frog, and other animals kept trying to eat him. As Leo told the story, adding funny voices and hopping around like the wizard frog, Galen began to chuckle. The chuckle grew into a laugh, and soon the entire forest seemed to be laughing along. When Leo finished his story, Galen was still shaking with laughter. The face in the trunk opened wide, and inside was a hollow space. There, resting on a bed of moss, was a bright yellow stone with the symbol of a smiling face. "The Stone of Joy is yours," Galen said. "You have earned it with true laughter." Sarah carefully took the stone. Immediately, she felt a bubbling happiness rise within her. Images of people laughing, celebrating, and sharing joyful moments filled her mind. She saw festivals, birthday parties, friends reuniting after long separations. "It's wonderful," she said, smiling widely. Leo touched the stone too, and his face lit up with delight. "I can feel all the happy stories." Galen's face grew serious. "You now have 3 of the 5 stones, guardian. The silence grows stronger as you collect them. They will stop at nothing to take them from you." Where should we go next? Sarah asked. The book will show you, Galen said. But first, rest here tonight. The forest will protect you until morning. That night, as Leo slept peacefully nearby, Sarah checked the hourglass. Less than half the sand remained in the top chamber. Time was running out. Morning in the forest of laughter was bright and cheerful. Creatures with rainbow-colored fur brought Sarah and Leo fruits for breakfast. The fruits tasted like nothing they had ever experienced, sweet and tangy, and somehow making them feel more alive with each bite. Sarah checked the book for their next destination. The map now showed a path leading out of the forest and down into a deep valley surrounded by gray mountains. The place was labeled the Valley of Tears. That doesn't sound very nice, Leo said, looking over her shoulder. It's where the fourth stone is hidden, Sarah explained. The book says it's the Stone of Sorrow. It contains all the sad stories ever told. They thanked Galen and the forest creatures before setting off. The colorful trees grew less vibrant as they neared the edge of the forest. Eventually, they reached a point where the bright trees ended completely, giving way to a landscape of gray rocks and withered plants. The path down into the valley was steep and winding. Dark clouds hung over it, and a light rain fell constantly. The air felt heavy and cold after the warmth of the forest. I don't like this place, Leo said quietly. It makes me feel sad. Sarah felt it too, a weight in her chest, a lump in her throat. She took Leo's hand. We don't have to stay long. Just find the stone and leave. As they descended deeper into the valley, they began to hear sounds. Soft crying came from all around them, though they could see no one. The rain fell harder. The book showed they needed to reach a small lake at the center of the valley. When they arrived, they found the lake was made of what looked like tears. Its surface rippled even when there was no wind. Sitting on a stone by the edge of the lake was a woman in a gray dress. Her long silver hair fell over her face as she looked down at the water. When she heard them approach, she looked up. Her face was beautiful, but lined with sadness. "Have you come for the stone?" she asked, her voice soft and melodious despite the sorrow it carried. Sarah nodded. "I am the guardian. This is Leo." "I am Mira, keeper of the Stone of Sorrow," the woman said. "Few seek this stone willingly. Most prefer joy to sadness, laughter to tears. We need all 5 stones to stop the silence," Sarah explained. Mira nodded slowly. "The Stone of Sorrow is powerful. It holds all the grief, all the loss, all the heartbreak that stories have ever contained. To take it, you must first understand why such stories matter." Leo frowned. "Why do sad stories matter?" "They just make people feel bad." Mira smiled gently at the boy. "Come, sit beside me." Leo hesitantly sat next to the woman. Sarah sat on his other side. "Sad stories teach us compassion," Mira said. "They help us understand the pain of others, even those very different from ourselves. They remind us that we are not alone in our darkest moments." She pointed to the lake. "Each tear here represents a story where someone faced loss or heartbreak, but found the strength to continue. These stories teach us courage in the face of sorrow." Sarah thought about the books in her library that had made her cry. She had never thought of them as valuable because of the sadness they caused, but because of the meaning they held. "To take the stone," Mira continued, "you must share a sorrow of your own. The lake must accept your tears." Sarah felt uncomfortable. She did not like to talk about sad things, especially in front of Leo, but she knew this was necessary. "When I was a child," she began, "my parents died in an accident. I was raised by my aunt. She was kind, but she was often busy with her own children. I felt very alone. Books became my friends, my escape. That's why I became a librarian, to be surrounded by stories." As she spoke, tears formed in her eyes. One fell, landing in the lake with a small splash. The surface of the lake began to glow with a soft blue light. Leo reached out and took Sarah's hand. "My grandmother died last year," he said. his voice small. "She was the one who told me all the stories. My parents don't believe in magic or anything like that. They said I was too old for fairy tales. That's why I followed you. I didn't want to stop believing." A tear fell from Leo's eye into the lake as well. The glow grew stronger. Mira nodded. "You both understand the power of sorrow, how it connects us, how it makes joy more meaningful." She reached into the lake and brought out a stone that glowed with a deep blue light. It had the symbol of a teardrop carved into its surface. "The stone of sorrow is yours, guardian. Use it wisely." Sarah took the stone carefully. Unlike the others, this one did not immediately flood her with images. Instead, she felt a deep sense of understanding, of connection to all who had ever felt pain. "Thank you," she said to Mira. The woman smiled, her face beautiful in its sadness. 4 stones gathered. Only one remains, the most difficult to find, for it lies within the heart of darkness itself. "The silence has it?" Sarah asked, alarmed. "Not yet, but they seek it even now," Mira replied. "The final stone, the stone of fear, lies in the dark tower where the leader of the silence dwells. It contains all stories of fear and courage." Sarah checked the hourglass. Very little sand remained in the top chamber. "We need to hurry," she said. "How do we find this dark tower?" "The book will show you when you are ready," Mira said. "But be warned, the silence will be waiting. They know you have the other stones now." As if on cue, the clouds above them grew darker. The rain turned cold and sharp. In the distance, shadows moved along the edges of the valley. "They're coming," Mira said urgently. "You must go. There is a path on the far side of the lake that leads out of the valley." "What about you?" Leo asked. "Do not worry about me," Mira smiled sadly. "I have guarded this place for centuries. I will remain." Sarah and Leo hurried around the lake. Behind them, the shadows were moving faster, taking forms similar to the ones they had seen at the lighthouse. Sarah could hear their cold voices calling her name. "Run, Leo," she said, pushing the boy ahead of her. "Don't look back." Sarah and Leo ran until they could no longer hear the voices of the silence behind them. The path had led them up out of the Valley of Tears and into a forest of dead trees. Everything here was gray and lifeless. When they finally stopped to rest, Sarah checked the book. The map now showed a tall black tower standing on a hill. Around the tower was a wasteland where nothing grew. "The Dark Tower," Sarah said. "That's where the last stone is." Leo looked scared. "Do we really have to go there? The silence will be waiting." Sarah checked the hourglass. Only a thin stream of sand remained in the top chamber. "We have no choice," she said. "Without all 5 stones, we can't stop the silence. They'll destroy all stories, and with them, all imagination and hope." They rested that night in the shelter of a fallen tree. Sarah kept the 4-story stones close. Their gentle glow provided the only light in the dark forest. Each stone pulsed with its own rhythm, like a heartbeat. In the morning, they continued their journey. The forest gradually thinned out, giving way to a barren landscape of cracked earth and sharp rocks. In the distance, they could see the dark tower rising like a spike against the gray sky. "How will we get in?" Leo asked. "There will be guards." Sarah studied the book. New words appeared on its pages. "The 5 stones were once one," she read aloud. "Together, they form the heart of stories. Only the heart can defeat the one who leads the silence." "But we only have 4 stones," Leo pointed out. "We'll find a way," Sarah said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. As they approached the tower, they could see dark figures moving around its base. Servants of the silence patrolled in pairs, their hooded forms blending with the shadows cast by the tower. "We can't fight all of them," Sarah whispered as they hid behind a large rock. Leo pointed to the 4-story stones. "Can't we use these, like you did at the lake?" Sarah considered this. Each stone had shown its power when used correctly. The blue stone of adventure had given her courage, and created light against the shadows. The rose stone of love had guided them to safety through the mountain. The yellow stone of joy had brightened their path in the darkest parts of the forest, and the deep blue stone of sorrow had given her understanding and connection. Together, she said, realizing the answer, we need to use them together. She arranged the 4 stones in a circle and placed the book in the center. The stones began to glow brighter, their light blending together. The pages of the book flipped rapidly, then settled on a blank page where new words formed. The true guardian is not the keeper of stones, but the teller of tales. Speak the story that binds them all. Sarah understood what she needed to do. She placed her hands on the book and began to speak. Once, there was a world where stories were magic, she said. Stories of adventure that gave people courage to explore. Stories of love that helped people connect. Stories of joy that brought laughter in dark times. And stories of sorrow that taught compassion and understanding. The stones glowed brighter with each word. Their light formed a dome around Sarah and Leo. But there were those who feared the power of stories, Sarah continued. They sought to control them, to silence them, to keep them for themselves alone. They forgot that stories belong to everyone, that they live in the hearts of all who hear them. The dome of light began to expand, moving toward the tower. The guards saw it coming and tried to run, but the light moved faster. When it touched them, they dissolved into mist. The true power of stories is that they connect us. They help us understand each other and ourselves. They show us possibilities beyond what we know. They give us hope. The light reached the tower, surrounding it completely. The black stone walls began to crack, revealing a golden light within. Sarah and Leo walked toward the tower, protected by the dome of light. The doors swung open at their approach. Inside, they found a circular room with a pedestal in the center. On the pedestal was a green stone with the symbol of a face half in shadow, half in light. The stone of fear, Sarah said. A dark figure stepped out from behind the pedestal. It was tall, with a face hidden in shadows beneath a hood. Guardian, the figure said in a cold voice, you have come far, but you cannot take this stone. Without fear, people would have no stories at all. Sarah stood tall. Fear has its place, but so do courage, love, joy, and even sorrow. The stones belong together, as all stories do. You understand nothing, the figure hissed. I am the silence. I have existed since the first story was told. I am the doubt that whispers, the fear that stops the words. I am eternal. No, Sarah said firmly. You are just another part of the story. Without you, courage would have no meaning, but you cannot be allowed to control all stories. She held out her hand with the 4 stones glowing brightly. The heart of stories belongs to everyone, even you. The figure seemed to hesitate. Then slowly it reached out and picked up the green stone of fear. For a moment, Sarah thought it would attack them, but instead it held the stone out to her. Perhaps there is wisdom in what you say, the figure said, its voice softer now. Take it. Complete the heart. Sarah carefully took the green stone. As her fingers touched it, images filled her mind. People facing their greatest fears, finding courage they didn't know they had, overcoming darkness to find light. She placed the 5th stone with the others. The 5 stones rose into the air, spinning in a circle. They began to merge, their colors blending until they formed a single crystal heart that glowed with all the colors together. The heart of stories pulsed once, twice, and then released a wave of light that spread out in all directions. The dark tower shimmered and transformed, its black stones turning to crystal that caught the light and sent rainbows dancing across the walls. The figure of the silence changed too. The darkness within the hood fell away, revealing a face that was neither old nor young, neither male nor female, but somehow both and neither. It has been so long, the figure said, sounding surprised. I had forgotten what it was to be part of the story rather than its enemy. The book in Sarah's hands began to glow. When she opened it, she saw that all its pages were now filled with writing, every story ever told, preserved forever. "You have restored balance," the figure said. "The silence will always exist, as doubt and fear must exist. But now it will not seek to control or destroy." Sarah looked at the hourglass. The sand had stopped falling, frozen in place. "What happens now?" Leo asked. Sarah smiled at the boy who had become her friend and helper. "Now we return to the village. And then we go home," Leo finished. "But we'll bring the stories with us." The heart of stories pulsed in agreement. It would go with them, back to the world where stories were sometimes forgotten but were always needed. As they left the tower, now a place of light rather than darkness, Sarah realized that her journey had changed her forever. She was no longer just a librarian who shelved books. She was a guardian who understood the true power of stories. And somewhere in her town, in her library, there would be people who needed those stories. Stories of adventure, of love, of joy, of sorrow, and even of fear. She would be there to help them find the right one at the right time. Because stories, like the journey itself, never truly end. They just become part of a larger tale, waiting for someone new to discover them. The end.